Let me know when we're live.
We're live now.
People, welcome back. Episode 8, the AK Indie Gaming Show. You already know. Why are you even looking for the intro if you know what's happening already? Who am I? I'm Stefan Galaxy. I'm one of your two co-hosts. Who's the other co-host? He's right here. Introduce yourself.
My name is Steven Galaxy. I go by Michael Kuhlman on the internet, but you can find me streaming at Twitch TV/JustJoeYo.
Everybody's a joker. What are we talking about today?
We're talking about the Oregon Trail. No,
Third time now.
It's the third time. The only
Never
game I
enough
play.
times to talk about the thing is that there's just not enough love for the intricate game design that is the Oregon Trail.
To
So
be
let's
honest,
get into it.
to be honest with you, if gaming never went past 2002, Age of Empires, I'd be happy. Got StarCraft Brood
Why the
War.
fuck are you talking about Age of Empires instead of Oregon Trail?
Oregon Trail was a 2001 game. You gotta
What?
you gotta upgrade it with. I'm
Hello?
sorry, I brought us off the rails.
Hello?
I brought us off the rails.
Hey, what are we talking about today?
We're talking about Hades.
Yeah. What is Hades?
Hades
people.
is an action roguelike RPG. It's not an RPG. Action roguelike, where you play as the son of Hades, and you got to go through a bunch of chambers, and upgrade all your stuffs. Get more death defiances, because that's the best one. And
You're not wrong.
yeah, that thing is insane. I saw the jump when they charged you like 25 emeralds in the beginning. I was like, yeah, I'm going to buy that one. And the next tier was 500. And it took me 20 hours of playing before I could buy the next instance of it. Yeah. Okay, maybe 15. But Steam says I have 50 hours in this game, like
That's
47 or something. Yeah, I left it on overnight one time. So there you go.
That could do it.
Yeah. Yeah, how else would you introduce the game?
I would introduce it the same way you did, almost verbatim. Action, roguelike, 4 levels, bosses at the end, traditional roguelike, sort of in between runs. You upgrade all of your systems, get more health, you get stronger items, you get death defiance, which you mentioned, which is basically a revive. And it's just really fucking good, isn't it?
Yeah, really good.
Supergiant Games developers, known for Bastion, Transistor, Pyre. You know about Bastion?
I know about Bastion because
You play as a little boy and you run around. There's a narrator and you
yeah.
attack people. You know about Transistor?
I remember with Bastion, stuff was falling and I had to keep on running.
Yeah.
Even though the ground is falling all around you. And then, no, I don't know about Transistor.
Transistor's like an action turn-based RPG kind of. There's like a kind of like a VATS thing going on where you can like pause time to like
Yeah.
choose your moves during combat, and you play as like a lady with your like husband's soul stuck in a giant computer chip that's a sword. It's pretty cool. That's
Okay.
a pretty great one.
Yeah.
And then Pyre is like self-immolation fantasy basketball meets dating Japanese romancing dating sim.
Okay, that I thought you were gonna say like different words. Like I was gonna tune out. You were gonna say action, roguelike, RPG. But did you what was that again? Come at me. Like okay, what?
Self-immolation fantasy basketball meets Japanese dating sim. What's the problem?
You
play as like a bunch of people who like want to sacrifice themselves to like a big bonfire. But the process of doing that basically plays out like a game of basketball where you're like trying to pass like the fucking immolation fire to like the opposing bonfire to sacrifice yourself.
I mean, I get the connection between Bastion and this game and from Transistor from what you described it, but this other game by Supergiant is
Yeah.
Did they
It's actually fantastic though. It's critically acclaimed,
okay?
some would say.
Yeah.
But yeah, the point is these people know what they're doing.
Yeah.
They're on top of it.
This guy or this game dev team killed it with this game, with Hades.
Yeah.
I see everybody playing it. I see tons of people streaming it. And I got addicted to it. I mean, those first 2 weeks of playing.
Same.
Yeah. Yeah.
Same.
Like,
I have Steam says I have 45 hours in the game.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
So less than you.
yeah. And how many nights did you leave it on overnight? 0. Only when you were
0.
playing?
0.
It's one of those few experiences. You get this every once in a while with a game, for me, where I had to wake up and I would go to work or like do the things I had to do, but I'm thinking about the game, and I work from home, and it's like I start playing, and then like gotta get some work done. Okay, I'm gonna start playing, and then dinner. I gotta make dinner, but then I gotta start playing. And most games don't keep you on. You kind of play for your few hours every night or whatever, and then you're in between, you're doing other stuff. No, I wanted to keep on just playing, and like Jolie was like, "Hey, do you want to go take a walk?" I was like, "No, I gotta." Don't worry about it. And yeah, it's cool when you get those experiences.
I mean, it's good. I streamed the game for I think like 2 weeks. That was like the only thing I played on stream.
Right.
At one point I ended the stream and said, all right, tomorrow we're gonna play not Hades, and then we played Hades.
Yeah, you were playing off stream too.
Had to do it to him. I have been playing off stream. This is true. Have you beaten the game?
I got so close and I died. I came in hot to hate the Hades fight. I had all 3 of my death defiances. I might have been full HP, and I was cocked and ready to go. If I think that's what they say. And I got to this second instance of Hades, and it was the first time I was ever fighting against him. And we got him down to that first health bar, and then that second one shot him back up, and I was like, oh no. And I think I lost 2 lives right then and there, and ripped on.
It do be like that.
Yeah. I stopped playing for a little bit after that. Got disheartened, and I have not beaten the game.
50 hours?
Okay. I've played for 25 hours, and I have not beaten it. Am I a bad player?
Oh.
I feel like
I don't know what to tell you.
I feel like I've
My numbers are different. My numbers are different. That's all I'm
All right, how many hours until you beat the game? Was it like 13?
I think it was like 15 or something.
15?
Somewhere around like 12 to 15.
Wow.
I'm just guessing.
You're like
I had a 15 win streak on stream.
That is insane to me. Although you probably got to the point where you upgraded everything pretty high, and
my mirror is pretty much maxed out. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. There's, I don't know if you know, but there's a system called Heat, where after you beat the game, you can add modifiers. So you can add a modifier to your run. So there's a system called Heat.
Right.
You can add a modifier to the run that makes the game a little bit harder, your run a little bit harder, but it resets your bounties. So like getting the Titan's Blood and the Diamond and, whatever. What's the next one? Ambrosia, and then you get Titan's Blood for fighting Hades. It like resets those. And then you have to do a heat level to get to the next heat level. And a lot of people just keep stacking modifiers to see how high they can go. I think my highest right now is heat. It's the heats on each weapon as well. There's 6 different weapons. So my highest is heat 10 with the sword, but I had a 15 win streak of increasing heat levels on every weapon I used.
Okay, that sounds like it would be really hard at the end.
Well, like I would do like heat 4 on the sword, and then heat 2 on the fists, and then heat 3 on the fists, and then heat 5 on the sword. Like, kind of like that. Like I would keep increasing them. Right now I'm at 10. I think the world record is like 53.
Oh, wow.
I think for how high you can go.
Yeah.
The thing is, like, there are some modifiers that are not that bad. So there's ones that are like increase health, or the shop costs more, like increase health for the enemies, or the shop items cost 40% more, or there's 1 extra armored enemy in the mini boss room, and those are like, oh yeah, just give them to me, no problem.
Yeah.
And then there's ones that are like, every boss has a new technique, you have to give up one of your boons before you can move on to the next floor, You're offered two and then eventually one thing per god. They get pretty fucking rough. So the more that you're like trying to increase your heat at 53, it's like enemies move twice as fast, you take twice
Yeah.
as much damage, have half as much health, your healing items don't work. You have to give up a boon on every floor. You only choose one item per god. Every boss does extra things. There's extra enemies. Every enemy has to be hit twice before they take damage. Like it gets pretty bad.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
gets pretty rough. But I'm on heat 10. I
Oh, right
unfortunately
there.
lost my
What
run to some trash run.
Oh no, the stream can't see it. One of my friends on Steam, it just showed him playing. I haven't talked to him in like a couple years, playing Hades. I was like,
Yeah,
okay, there you go.
it's good.
Yeah.
A point of I guess to make is that the game was actually in early access for
Right.
like over a year, but it just recently came out within the past like month, officially I think.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah, people have been all over it, which is
Yeah.
good because
And
it's really fantastic.
it's a great game for $24.99. I mean, you're gonna get your money's worth. You're
Yeah,
gonna be driven to beat it. The sense of progression is really good. The action itself is really good. It's very I found myself very spammy, like just spamming the keyboard. You're dashing a lot. You're trying to get behind each of the enemies. The enemies are fun to dodge on all the shit that they throw out at you. Um, the bosses are fun. They're interesting. Um, it felt like the best parts of me playing Diablo 3 when I was playing it for like a long time, because you just have a character in the middle of the screen. You got to dodge it. You have to clear rooms before you can progress on, and the upgrade system is really really cool the first go around. Um, I'm still on my first go around, but like I'm not sure. There's kind of like there's a way, and I'm sort of there now where I'm gonna feel like I've played the game to the extent I want to, and I'm gonna put it away. This is not one I'm gonna be playing over and over and over again 2 or 3 years from now. Like, um, people like Terraria is kind of like one of those games. Minecraft, for me, StarCraft 2, Diablo 3, Overwatch. Kind of these are games that people play years and years and years after they come out.
right.
But this is once I beat it, I'm gonna put it away and probably go, that was fun, and you uninstall it on Steam, and I'm not sure it ever comes back.
For me, that's definitely what I thought was going to happen. I thought I was going to beat Hades and be like, well, okay, I did it. Now I can move on to something else. But have you? I don't remember if it's locked behind completing or fighting Hades, but have you done anything with like the weapon aspects? Do you know about that?
Is that you hold down E and the blood thing comes up and you can upgrade the weapons?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I do have that unlocked, and I've been upgrading the weapons. That's
Okay.
been
You have the extra forms of the weapons already, or just the base forms?
I don't know the difference between the two.
You can up. So when it gives you the option to upgrade, do you just have one weapon?
Right. No, I think I just have one weapon. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you beat Hades, each weapon gains 3 additional forms
Okay.
that all have unique effects. So like one of them for the sword is like Zagreus's, which is the base one, that I think just gives you like extra attack speed or something. Another one gives you extra cast damage, and when you special enemies, you get your cast stones back. Another one is like after you use your special, you get increased critical chance. And every weapon has like a bunch of these different ones. So like the fist just has like the normal deal damage or whatever. There's an aspect for the fist that like when you special, you do an uppercut and it like drags an enemy in front
Yeah.
of you. That one's really fucking sick. And like once you get access to those and you start messing with the aspects, it's like a huge like refresh of interest because you're like, I beat the game, I can move on now. And then they're like, hey, look at all these things, and you're like, oh
I
cool, there's a bow that if I hit the enemy with my attack, all my special arrows that scatter shot home in on them. That's pretty neat. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh fuck, I'm back in it, baby. It's so good.
Yeah.
It's great.
No,
I mean, maybe that's just
I
me.
think that part's
It's
good. The part that I don't like is the same enemies over and over and over again.
Sure.
Yeah. That part cuz I get the attacking part and you could choose a different weapon. But I always feel like I have to choose the weapon that has the emerald purple glowing so that you get extra You don't have to. Yeah, I know. I know you don't have to, but I always choose that one because I'm like, it's got to be efficient.
You get darkness for beating the same bosses over and over. And so if you can just get to the because the first time you get Titan's Blood, the Diamond,
Right.
the Ambrosia, and then the Titan's Blood again, if you've already gotten one of those items on the level you're on, you just get darkness again. And it's like 50 darkness, 100, and then 150 on the third boss. So literally just grinding normally, as long as you're picking a weapon that you're like good with, you'll get way more darkness than picking like the one that has the bonus.
Wait. Okay. So what do you mean by that? Like you can get more darkness?
Yeah, like you always get a reward from the boss.
Yeah.
And if you beat the same boss over and over, you get darkness. So as long as you're picking a weapon that you're comfortable with and get further in the run, you'll have more darkness than if you pick the one that gives you the bonus.
Right. Okay. All right. I get that.
Because if you get to the third floor with a weapon you know, even if it didn't have the darkness bonus, you'll get 150 just from that fight.
Yeah. I was getting to the point where I was hitting the wall. I was hitting the Hades wall. Like I could progress through, and I had each run I was getting more progress than the last run with almost no exceptions. Like a few here and there where I was like, oh, that was a terrible run. But then it was up to the point of Hades, and I hit that wall. That was my plateau. I just can't get past them.
Yeah. Obviously part of it is just like getting better by playing, and then part of it is like learning what things are like unnaturally powerful, like way too strong. So like we haven't mentioned it yet, but part of the main upgrade system of Hades is that there's I don't even know the number, but a ton of different gods that you can pick boons from, and each one has like a theme to it, right? So Zeus is obviously
there's like
lightning.
23 or something, right? I mean,
there's a lot. Zeus, Dionysus, Ares, Artemis, Athena, Demeter, Aphrodite.
Those specifically, there might be like 12.
Yeah, something in that range. And they all have their different themes and different sort of like upgrades, but each one of them can give you an upgrade to either your main attack or your special or some passive or to your casting or to your ultimate or to your dashes. And then obviously there's like big synergies between having a lot of different ones. Which is definitely it's ended up with some pretty interesting runs for sure. So like when you get the bow that makes your scatter shot home in on the enemies that you hit with your regular attack, and then you get the Artemis special that's like your special attack can crit, and then all of a sudden all those bows home in and crit on enemies, and then you have another thing that's like if you crit an enemy, enemies around it have a higher chance to crit, and then everything's dying, and it's great.
Yeah, you can get crazy stack ups.
Yeah, there are some boons from certain gods that are like really, really strong. And one of them, as although I'm embarrassed to admit it, I think is like an absolute crutch for me, where I think every run that I've won, I've had that boon.
Yeah.
And I almost always choose the starting relic to try to get it in the first area. And then I'm like, I'll figure the run out after. I need to get that at the very start.
Do you remember what it was?
Way too good. Yeah, it's Athena's deflecting dash.
Okay, and what exactly does that do?
When enemies shoot projectiles at you, while you're dashing, the projectiles are reflected. But it also gives you increased invincibility frames on your dash, and it lasts longer because there's like a period where the shields rotate around you while you're dashing. And you can deflect. It doesn't actually reflect the damage back at enemies, but you can like counter just regular melee attacks too if you dash into them.
Yeah,
all the projectiles are basically turned off because you're always dashing.
Yeah.
So any projectile bullet, beams don't work, but any projectile bullet that hits you is just like completely negated. There's some bosses that shoot like a billion bullets. It's like a small bullet hell section, and if you have deflecting dash, you literally just insta win that. And because it's on your dash, it doesn't get in the way of like any of your attacks or anything like that. So it's really fucking strong. And when I don't have it, I feel it that I don't have it. I'm like, man, this run's a lot harder when you actually have to pay attention because the game is chaotic.
Yeah.
There's a lot of traps, there's magma, there's bombs flying everywhere, there's explosives. Yeah, there's a ton of shit going on. So once you're like, if I'm dashing, I never have to worry about projectiles. So much is trivialized, like so much of the game.
Right.
In the second area where there's the enemies that drop bombs when they die.
Yeah.
You dash while you kill them, and the bomb just gets immediately deflected, so it just doesn't hit you anymore. Like so much stuff like that. So it makes the game really way easier. I would say, I mean, I said it on stream and people were trying to cat me, but it's just 100% true. You take deflecting dash, your chances of winning go up by like 25% instantly.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you're going to win, but chances way higher if you get that.
I know exactly. I had very similar runs to exactly what you're talking about. That as soon as I knew I got that, it was like second or third room. I was like, we're going all the way to the end, baby.
It's good.
And like I knew I got there. You just feel it with your setup. Yeah.
It's really good. I mean, I've had a lot of fights against Hades where I'm like, oh, this is going to be a hard one, and it's a fucking breeze. No Death Defiance procs, and I'm like, what the fuck? And then there's some where I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm about to clap some fucking greasy cheeks, bro. And then I just get obliterated, just destroyed. And I'm like, what the fuck happened, dude? So weird. I legit think that the third area is the hardest fight in Hades.
Yeah, which part of it?
Theseus and the Minotaur, I think is harder than the actual Hades boss fight.
Yeah, I think that part is
so hard.
Very,
it's
very hard.
so difficult.
Yeah.
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 It's a good game though.
It's
the thing that's like frustrating about Hades to try to talk about is like it doesn't do anything like special.
Yeah. But it's great.
Sorry.
But it's
like
good.
It doesn't it doesn't have like there's games where, you know, I don't like using the phrase because it's basically a slur, but there's games that have like gimmicks where it's like, oh, the thing about this game is that you can reverse time, or the thing about this game is that when you do stuff, it makes copies of your character, and that's like your thing, how you solve puzzles or whatever the fuck, right? Hades doesn't do like anything fancy. They're like, you have upgrades, you have weapons, you have types of weapons, you have things you can upgrade in between your runs, you have bosses, whatever, a shop. It's all the same shit, but they are like, we have refined a roguelike experience to have amazing visuals, amazing music, just great feel of like playing the game. Like it feels so good just to play. Like attacks feel good, all the weapons feel good. Most of the boons feel like really impactful to like actually changing the way that your run feels.
For sure.
Not all of them, but you know, they can't.
And there's
do
variety.
It for all of them.
You can
There's
go. I don't know if I can go
variety.
here and there. Yeah.
Yeah, and the different god boons, based off what weapons you're using, there is a lot of substance to like which boons you're taking. So like when you take the fist, they're like a really fast attack weapon. So taking boons from like Dionysus that poisons enemies every time you hit them is like way better than if you took it on something slow like the bow. But then with stuff like the bow, deals a lot of damage, so taking crits really good. And then you can make once you get the aspects that have a bunch of different versions, you can make like a ton of different builds on the spot basically, and be like, oh yeah, like if I have this shield and it throws out multiple shields, and I put Doom on the shield so it hits all the enemies that it touches also, and it's a ton of cool stuff. That I guess one system that it has that's interesting is the trinkets, where I don't know if you have it at the start of every floor, you can pick a trinket.
Yeah.
But that kind of helps because it doesn't guarantee you anything, but you can like sort of push the run into something you want.
Yeah.
You're like, I have the gun, the exogryph or whatever, the railgun. I want Zeus. I'm gonna try to push to get Zeus in the first floor. Look for exactly what I want.
Yeah, it's sort of like Slay the Spire in that way, where you kind of identify, okay, if I choose, like you're given 3 choices. If I choose this one, I'm really hoping that I can go down a path where I'm kind of choosing from the same bucket, and you're stacking, and you sort of have your builds in that way. You can't plan it at the start of the run, but you pattern recognize enough times to know, if I get the dash that does the lightning strike, I know I'm going down the lightning strike build that just get tons of stuff to enable the lightning strike to hit as often as possible, and then jack that thing up and keep going.
And that's the thing in Slay the Spire, and I mean in a lot of games, but it's a good example. Like when you get your first pack, if you're playing like the Silent, and you open your first pack of cards to choose from, and one of them has like the Shiv and one of them has the poison, and you're like, oh, I'll take the poison card, and then from then on you never see a poison card again. You're like, fuck my life.
Yeah.
But in Hades, they give you a little more. You're like, okay, I want Zeus on the railgun. You immediately get Zeus. There's rarities to the boons, So a lot of the like special dash and attack bonuses you'll almost always see on your first choices. So you're like, oh, I got the attack, I take the attack, and now the game recognizes you took Zeus, so you're gonna see Zeus more often, which again lets you like upgrade. You're like, oh, now I have the attack, now I'll get the debuff on Zeus's things for like jolted to deal damage to enemies like when they move or whatever.
Yeah.
And then on the next floor you can be like, well, I have Zeus now, so what goes good with Zeus? Well, if I had like this other bonus like Poseidon something, and then you try to lean into that. And then I'm a bitch, so in the final floors I take items that help me not take damage.
Yeah,
it's good.
Yeah, that trinket
Acorn's broken
that you switch. This is a really good game of like progress. Okay, so you first start it, it's hard as shit. Like you barely get through 1 or 2 or 3 rooms, and you're like, this is so difficult. And then you start to have some progress, and that's when you get real momentum. And that momentum kind of sticks all the way through. And this game has really good, like, just you're always getting a little something, and they surprise you even till like for me like 20 hours in. Like it's kind of still just sprinkling a little bit of surprising stuff in there.
Yeah.
Like characters I'd never met before. I'd randomly go into a new room, and it gives me either I can upgrade everything from level 1, or everything goes up 1 level, or 3 items or 2 items go from jump 2 levels. And it's just like these little extra bonuses that I've never even met this character before. 15.
Yeah, there's a lot of progression, and the game is really story rich too.
Right.
There's a lot of unique dialogue you get just run to run, because it's just like we just have a giant pool of dialogue for characters to go through. And sometimes they won't be there when you show up, and sometimes they have to trigger for something specific to happen. And I don't want to spoil the game, but you have to beat it 10 times to get like the credits.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know. You know, I'm over here thinking, but I've learned that the roguelike games, even that if you get to the end, it's hard to get to the end. That's not the end. And so
right. I mean, honestly though, I've played a lot of roguelikes, and this is probably one of the most like lenient get the credits I've ever seen.
Okay.
Because for Isaac, it's like fucking crazy. For Spelunky, that game's hard as fuck. Slay the Spire, it's like you don't even slay the Spire until you beat it on Ascension 20, or on an Ascension level.
That's so insane to me.
So it's pretty rough. But Hades, it's like we'll beat the game 10 times. There's 6 different weapons, so you get 6 of your 10 wins before you even get to a heat level. And then on your heat, you're just like, things at the shop cost 40% more. And you just get more wins.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I think does make Hades really interesting, is that, and again, these people, they know what they're doing. They never made a roguelike, but they know what they're doing. They're really, really good about the way they design like every little thing. And obviously in Hades it shows, because again, the art and the music and everything's great, and the game feels great, and the story's great, and the writing's good, and it's just like there's like no bad thing anywhere. There's nothing that I look at and I'm like, that's jank, that's bad, I wish this was different. Everything's pretty fucking solid. And one of those things that's really good is that I think Hades, more than most, I can't say, I think there are some people that they're just like, they're fucking 1000 IQ galaxy brain, they'll win every time. But a lot of roguelikes feel like you cannot guarantee you're gonna win ever. You're just like, I know a lot about the game and I'm good at the game, but there are a lot of RNG things that can happen to really fuck me over.
Yeah, some runs will never work. Yeah,
right. It's true in Slay the Spire, where you can just get a shit deck really easily. You can get just a terrible deck, and if you misplay a little bit with a bad run, you're just completely done. Binding of Isaac, you just get terrible items or a bad room or something. There's a ton of shit that can go wrong. Hades, like, it is a high skill level game. Like, the better you get, the more consistently you win.
Mm-hmm.
And like you were mentioning earlier, you start in the game's hard as fuck. You have to upgrade stuff. Pretty traditional-ish for a lot of roguelikes, where there's something you get during your run that you take back to upgrade so that the next one's a little easier. Or you're more powerful. And I like the curve, because it starts difficult and you build your way up from being like, I have very few resources and it's really hard for me to beat the game.
Steven, let me say this. So like the way it was interesting and it was hard is that in roguelikes, it's not about just hitting the same point every single time and going, I just need to progress this. It wasn't like I got to beat the first boss, got to this in the next room, and that was the same spot every time, and then I had to beat that. It was different areas. Like I sometimes the solution to that was new boons or getting better at my current ones, or it was I just need to get to my next emerald. Like what I'm saying, what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say your outer limits, if you're stretching your skill set, ended at different spots along the horizon. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that's
yeah.
That's not the case with a lot of roguelikes. Like
right.
There's kind of like that end wall of. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think I get what you're saying. That like there are things you could work towards outside of just beating the game, and it makes it like the progress of getting further and further. It doesn't always have to be like I start the game, I have to finish it.
It's dynamic.
Like, I need to get far enough to get the thing that helps me get even further, and then you keep going. So you're like building even a loss. If you're getting more darkness, if you're getting more emeralds, is going to feed back into the mirror, which is going to upgrade you for your next run. And so you start really weak, you build yourself up, more death defiance, more health, more damage, whatever, and you keep going. And then when you're finally at the point where you've beaten the game multiple times, you unlock your heat levels, and now it's not the game being like, oh, we're going to keep getting harder. Now you're making the game harder to suit your own challenge that you want. So you start weak, you get stronger, and then you purposefully make the game more difficult to get the rewards that they're offering, to keep making yourself more powerful by upgrading your weapons, to increase your heat level more. It's good. It's good. It's definitely a really good feedback loop.
Knowing what you know now about different roguelikes and their end games, how would you rate Hades end game content versus other?
That's a hard question. So
just
if we're
totally subjective.
If whatever we're just talking about end game, I would say it's okay. One of the problems, I guess, if there are criticisms for the game, I think one of them might be lack of diversity, maybe. I don't know if I'm using the word correctly,
that you're killing.
Not just the creatures, but like there are 4 floors. Every floor has this. Yeah, every floor has the same boss on each level.
They act pretty much the same way.
You will see the same enemies. On each level as well. You'll see the same bosses, and there's no variance of anything. So like, just as an example, again, I hate that every time I talk about this game, I just talk about every other roguelike in the fucking planet, but
I think this show is like just about roguelikes.
It's what it feels like. Yeah. So like, looking at the Binding of Isaac, like, not only does every floor have a pool of enemies to pick from as a boss, but you also you can get the Curse of the Lost, where you can't see your items. You can get the Curse of Darkness, where you can't see the map. You can get the giant floors, where it's 2 floors put together.
There's a lot of variety in those runs.
There's variety in the bosses. There's variety in the levels even themselves and what they look like.
The seeds are divert very quickly.
Yeah. Right. So even though Hades, it feels, just because of how good it feels to play, and because of how interesting the different runs are, and because you're not, and I think it is important to speak to about why Hades feels so good. You're just really not tied down to RNG as much, so you don't feel like
it's actiony. Yeah, that's
right. You don't feel tempted to just like end your run intentionally because it's bad.
Well, it
never feels like that, which it feels like that with other games a lot, where you're like, my run's bad, I might as well just fucking restart because it's awful.
Right. It gives you a fighting chance. It's almost like dropping you down in the same Call of Duty map over and over and over again, playing the same mode. It's like you get the same upgrades and weapons, but yet it's still dynamic because it's so action oriented that you could have done better. And it's the same thing in this game, where you could have dashed better or not hit traps or defeated the enemy without taking any damage. Like, I'm getting to the point now where I can not take any damage almost pretty consistently, unless I mess up and I know exactly as I'm doing it, like, I just screwed up, but I can go no damage and beat the first boss and get pretty far into the second one before I should be like, okay, I almost always take damage at this room, whatever. Right. Because my skill set is, I've played this over and over and over again. And so if I have a bad run, it's a lot more in my control. Even if I get bad items, I know my skill set can, when you get hit by dumb stuff, you know it's your fault. So the challenge is, I even though you've put the reps in, it's like playing StarCraft 2 or something that's mechanically just feels good. It's like playing piano. It's a really difficult song. It's, you're dashing, you're spamming, but you're dodging, and that's the fun. And that part is dynamic because the enemies, even though the room setup is largely the same as past runs and the enemies are the same, the way they interact and the way you dodge, and maybe you're the distance that you need to be away because you have the spear this run versus the sword. You just know your play style. I would do the same, dash up to them, do a dash strike, go aim for their back while dodging the little side guys, and try to do backstabs so I can do extra damage. And then make sure if I dash away, I'm not on top of a plate of spikes that hits you. And these are all basic stuff that I was doing so much self damage with traps the first few runs, and now I never get hit by traps. And I'm sure you're the same way. Like, it's just, or you get real good that you could knock enemies into the traps pretty reliably. Like, that's not a hard skill for me anymore. And that is what makes this game. So even though it's the same run with the same bosses, and that does get repetitive, the fun is in the actiony skill set mechanics of the game. And that's really cool to see. That's different with this roguelike versus other ones that I've played, that just to have different, like FTL and Slay the Spire and Binding of Isaac might be in a little bucket that are closer. Hades is totally different, but still roguelike, and it's because of that action element of the game.
Yeah. And I guess for what it's worth, again, I don't remember when certain things unlock, but there are, I guess, technically 3 different first bosses.
Right.
They're very similar. There are differences, but they're mostly pretty similar. And there are variations to the Hydra as well. Still the Hydra every time. Slight variations, again, mostly just like small things. So I think it would be nice to see some kind of diversity in the bosses, other than just making them more difficult through the heat levels.
We're being nitpicky because this is like
looking for criticism.
Yeah, because it's great because otherwise.
Like, it's fucking fantastic. It's again, it's difficult because it's like, well, what makes it so good? And it's like, well, you just kind of have to play it, and then what makes it so good. It just feels great. Like, again, Isaac and Slay the Spire, they have crazy, insane synergies you can get where you're like, oh my god, I didn't know items interacted this way. And it doesn't feel like Hades has anything like that.
Nothing's insane.
And yet, you have 6 different weapons, which is good variety because they all play pretty different. The spear's totally different from the bow, totally different from the sword.
There's a couple that feel the same.
Which ones? Which do you think?
The sword feels pretty similar to the same style as the fists, and the shield. Okay. All of those feel the same. They feel like the same weapon. Well, and the spear feels a little different than those. And then
I don't want to be that guy. But when you unlock the aspects, you're gonna change your mind about that.
Okay. All right.
if you end up unlocking them,
you're that guy who's like, get good, scrub. You just don't know the
once
beauty
you get
of this
the
game.
sword, like when you get the sword that increases your cast damage, all of a sudden, like every time you play sword, you're actually just playing a casting build.
Okay.
And then you get the shield that when you do your bull rush or whatever, where you charge up and you attack forward, and then you do your special, it throws out 5 shields instead of 1.
Dude, I don't use my
and
Q
then all of a
lot.
sudden you're playing completely different everything.
Yeah. Do you spam the Q? That's a special, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You use that all the time. You're like, yes.
It depends on the weapon, but some of them are better than others. I
hardly ever use my special. I use my right click, my cast all the time.
The sword special is very good. The spear special is very good. Most of them are pretty good.
Yeah. And I guess it's okay for the crossbow. It can be useful when you've got a lot of little enemies coming at you using the special.
Oh, for the mortar strike?
Yeah.
So like I don't want to do like the tier list of like aspects, but at this point none of the weapons I use their first forms.
Okay.
Because they all have something way more. Yeah. So like the gun gets one where
I've done one run with the gun ever.
The gun was the last one I had to do. I did it. It was like a meme because people were like, "Do the gun on stream because you have to win with it," and I was like, "Fuck, okay." but the you unlock something called the aspect of Eris on the railgun, where if you're standing in your special when it goes off, you get a 75% damage increase on all your damage.
Holy shit.
So you end up like firing your special into enemies and dashing into it to get like damage bonuses. And like all those little
Yeah.
things where they force you to play your weapon a specific way for some kind of advantage, they add so much more variety. So like when I said the weapons all feel different, admittedly early on they're pretty standard, so like melee feels like melee with a lot of things,
Yeah.
but once they start diversifying the weapons, aspect of Zeus, I think it's Zeus, on the shield, when you throw it, it turns into like a spinning disc that just kind of stays out hitting enemies repeatedly, and when you recall it, it tries to chase after you, and if you dodge away it just chases you the whole time. So you
Okay.
can throw your disc, and let's say you have like every time your special hits an enemy it casts a lightning bolt, so you throw it out into a group of enemies, it's spinning, every time it hits them they're striking them with lightning, and then when it tries to come back to you, you just dash around the room with
And
it
it's
following
following
the
you around.
enemies and
Yeah.
hitting them with lightning and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's that kind of stuff that feels
Yeah.
like really, really, really cool. Just awesome, awesome synergies. One of the sword aspects literally just unlocks Excalibur, which has a different moveset than the regular sword. It's slower, but deals way more damage.
Yeah.
And then you can get like critical on it. And all of a sudden, like your sword strikes deal like 2,000 damage by themselves, which numbers seem arbitrary. So 2,000 is a lot. And it's just like, it's insane. Like you'll kill the first boss in like 5 hits with like the aspect of Arthur if you get like a couple crits or whatever. It's so good.
And it's so cool how the I don't know how they do this, because it seems like really complicated. They probably just do this like with a feel. The game devs set it up so that you feel like you're progressing, and I just have hit that spot where I'm trying to beat Hades, and I'm getting a little bored because every run is the same, and I've hit my wall. But they kept me up really, really good, like on track with feeling like I'm progressing and doing new stuff until this point. But if I just push through this and I can upgrade my weapons, that it sounds like you're talking about a whole new level of playing the game that I would find interesting, but I'm stuck in this middle portion. But kind of what I was saying with that is that the game devs have made it like, how do you make progress feel good even 25 hours into the game on the player's 30th run? And that's really cool how it's so complicated how
it seems like maybe depending on who you are, you can consider this a criticism. But the nature of roguelikes is to be more powerful over time.
right.
And learn the game and unlock more stuff to make your future runs easier. So like in Isaac, you don't have like a mirror to give you different abilities, but you have different characters. And different characters is kind of like stuff to pick from you have to unlock. Or items in your run that you don't have until you do other stuff, right? So it's like, oh, mom's knife is really broken in Isaac, but you have to beat the devil in that game before you even get mom's knife to appear in a run.
Yeah.
So
also knowledge
that whole thing, right?
Like
right.
knowing the items is a big part of it.
That whole process of like playing to become more powerful over time is like pretty standard stuff. I feel like with Hades, they designed like how strong they want as far as the mirror alone, right? The mirror and the weapons that you have. They're like, this is about where someone would be comfortable fighting Hades consistently, and then just scale them backwards. And then they have to build themselves up to that level. So instead of being like, oh, let's make them more powerful, they're like, make them weaker until they get to that power level we expect them to be at.
Maybe their philosophy behind that? That's kind of how they
maybe
if
they're like,
we're
if they're
guessing,
like, we want people, people probably on average want around 200 health while fighting Hades. So if they're gonna pick a couple Minotaur hearts, we're talking like 150, which means let's start them at 50 and make them upgrade to get the extra 100 to be at a 150 to get the upgrades that give them more health, so that when they get to Hades, they're at about the health level we want. Because like you're talking about like the Death Defiance, like working my way up to buying all 3 Death Defiances was a notable change in how far I got in the game.
Absolutely.
Obviously, because they're self revives. Like every time you die, you're like, I would have, if you have 1 life and then you have 2, you're like, I will get 100% further in my next run, probably, right around that number. And all the way up to 3. So, by the end, it ends up being funny because at this point, I usually find myself like never proc Death Defiance up until maybe the Theseus fight.
You know
So
it's a
every
bad
time I'm
run
offered,
if you
yeah.
Death Defiance way too early. You're like, uh-oh, this is
But
not
even that, there's ways to buy them back.
right. That's cool. Yeah.
I've had runs where I lost all 3 Death Defiances before Theseus, and I'm like, this is a wrap, bro. I am done. I am dead the second I walk into that boss
Did you
room.
find him back?
And then I see the dude, like one of the random NPCs you can talk to, where they just give you a bonus that you choose from like 3 different ones. And he just offers you replenish all Death Defiance, and I'm like, we're back in it. We're in it again.
This is a run.
Because once you get to Hades, like, you know, there's a
Yeah.
huge shop and a bunch of different things to pick from in those chambers
Yeah.
at the Temple of Styx. So the chances of winning when you get all your Death Defiances back right before the 3rd boss fight is like is way better. But yeah, it's pretty awkward. It's not until that 3rd boss battle going into the last area where usually I start losing my Death Defiances where you need them most.
Right. Right.
And then every other option, every time you get offered one, because Athena's broken and she also gives you boons that give you defiances back.
I didn't know that.
So they're just wasted. Yeah, listen.
Athena's good.
You pick the Athena.
I've been liking
trinket.
Zeus.
You pick the Athena trinket. You walk into the first room. You hope you get the dash, and then you pick the next guy you want for your weapon. Is broken. She's broken. She's so good.
I've been liking Zeus. Do you think Zeus is fairly good?
Depends on the weapon.
Okay.
Zeus is really good on the gun, really good on the fists, and really good on the bow, but only the one that has the seeking arrows. But like for slower weapons, it's just not as good. So you just want to tailor your weapon to what boon gives you the most for it. So like if you pick the fists, they attack really quickly. If you take like Ares, like Doom effect, that like puts the sword over their head, and then after like a second it drops down and deals damage, you're attacking faster than the Doom can actually apply.
Yeah, it's
so you're
not
just like waste.
faster.
It doesn't do much.
Yeah.
Whereas if you take something slower, like the shield or the bow, the Doom damage is way stronger.
Okay, I still got. I sort of know what you're saying, but I don't. In my runs to this point, I don't plan exactly what you're saying with choosing this weapon, and like I'm going to choose Zeus because it's for the reasons you just stated. So I still have some learning to do about this game.
Right off the top, honestly, if I don't want a shameless plug, but I'm sort of leaning off Hades finally on stream, so I'm probably not going to play Hades for a bit while like live on Twitch. And I've been uploading a lot of my Hades runs directly to YouTube.
Go watch
and
one of those.
I put out a Hades review recently. The last video for Hades that I'm probably going to put out is going to be like tips for like starting, even though I'm not like a master. And one of those things that I've definitely been on the top of my mind is like early on, prioritize Athena and prioritize Artemis, which gives you critical. Critical is super fucking strong, and technically there are things that could be better than it, but early on, like having deflecting on anything and having critical on your weapon is so fucking powerful. It's so powerful. It's really strong. It's good. Do that.
Yeah. I mean, this is the Every Game is Awesome show that we run here. And we just play games and everything's
great. We'll have to play a shitty one.
Yeah.
I'm hoping, so like I said, the devs have never made a roguelike. All the other games are pretty much just story games, so you beat them and you're done. I'm interested to see what their plans are for Hades moving forward. If we get like an official expansion that's like $10 or $15,
you think there'll be some like DLC and stuff for this game?
Right, maybe periodic updates where they just add things. They're just like, hey, we added a 5th aspect to every weapon, or we added new optional, maybe like branching paths where it's like, oh, on you go from Tartarus to Asphodel to Elysium to the Temple of Styx, or like the 4 levels. Maybe it's like, oh, well, if you find this NPC in Asphodel, you can go to a different area, and then that branches back around Elysium or something. Maybe they can add something like that. I'm excited to see what they do, because I think compared to their normal games, which usually have pretty great reception, Hades is the kind of game where, like a lot of roguelikes, people want to play for a long time. They're not just one and done usually. So I'm interested to see if they're going to keep updating. I would presume something, because I mean they're a team with a lot of money, a lot of talent, and there's a big demand for this game.
And they hit it pretty big with this game, right? I mean,
Yeah, and that's the thing that's funny is like you know, not to do the oh me indies, but even for an indie company, like they've had no failure.
Yeah.
Like Bastion was an absolute monster of a game, because that was early Xbox Live Arcade. Like indie games back then were bad. Like Braid and Super Meat Boy and Splosion Man were like the masterpieces of like big games like that. When Bastion hit, people like lost their minds. They're like, this is so fucking good. And it's like $15. What the
Yeah.
fuck? Transistor, I think Transistor's like their most underrated game. It's pretty good and it has the same like amazing like visuals and music that all their games have. Empire, the only problem Pyre had, you want to hear the worst thing about Pyre? It
What
came
is
out in
it?
2017.
And,
Next to Horizon Zero Dawn,
yeah.
Persona 5, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, Super Mario Odyssey, and like all these other fucking like masterpiece games. That same year was when
Yeah.
Pyre
No
came out.
one's got time for these indie games.
It
Yeah.
easily could have been a game of the year contender if it didn't come out with all these other fucking
Yeah.
giant insane games on the same year.
Yeah.
Because I remember in 2018, right after, people were like, oh, what are some of the best games of the year? And they're like Red Dead Redemption 2, God of War, Celeste.
Yeah.
It's like that's a really good indie. Empire was too, but holy fuck, that was a big
That
2017 was a
sometimes
big
that
year.
happens with like movies. Like there's like 1994, 1999, maybe 2001, although I'm not sure about that one, and then 2007. Like all these are huge years for movies
Right.
that just like all the best
Right.
movies
Like
came
if
out
you're a
during.
really good movie, but
Yeah.
you're not one of the insane movies,
Yeah.
now all of a sudden you're irrelevant.
Yeah,
And it's like,
exactly.
damn, bro. I mean, I already felt that way about Horizon Zero Dawn because it came out and then 2 weeks later, Breath of the Wild came out.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, people would have talked about Horizon for half a year if they didn't get Breath of the Wild 2 weeks later.
Yeah. Yeah,
It really
I
sucks,
have this
but
bad habit because as we're bringing it up, I realize I'm doing it with Hades and I did it with Horizon Zero Dawn. I have this bad habit of playing games almost to completion, seeing just before I get to the end and going, "All right, good enough. Like that's good enough for me." And then
I've done that. I've done that too. I've been trying to get really good about actually finishing games all
I
the
need to
way
push
through.
through. Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. Sometimes you do have to just be like, I just need to fucking get there.
Yeah.
And obviously with most roguelikes it's pretty tough. I'm so happy that I actually saw the ending of Hades. God
Yeah.
damn it. Even though I think there's like an epilogue I haven't hit, but fuck, I don't care, dude.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've done my I had, you know, I did my 10 wins. I got my 15 streak. I think I have like 30 or 35 completions somewhere in there.
How many runs do you
I
have?
don't care. I think like 60 or something.
Okay.
I don't know.
I
I
think
don't
I
know the
hit
exact
30.
numbers. Yeah.
I might be just over 30, like 34 or something. Yeah.
I mean, it's a great game.
Yeah.
It's fun to play. Like on I'm hoping that at the end of the year I will actually push myself to be what's the word? Diligent enough to actually get a game of the year, like a personal game of the year list out.
Sure.
Not like games that came out this year, but just like games I played this year. And right now, Hades is floating around like the top spot.
Wow.
It might be like my favorite game that I played.
What are some other ones
I'm
that
not sure. Link's Awakening on the Switch was really fun.
really?
Earlier in like January, February, I played a game called The Messenger, which is like a Ninja Gaiden 2D platforming game. So like, look, I don't want to I don't want to do the like, oh, it's a spoiler, whatever. Fuck it. I'm going to talk about it, okay? The game's old. All right? So I'm going to talk about
Yeah.
The Messenger.
Spoil it.
But it starts as an 8-bit, like an NES retro style side-scrolling Ninja Gaiden game, you know, with shurikens and your sword strikes or whatever. But the game has a really cool mechanic where if you hit something with your sword when you're in midair, you get your jump back. And
Okay.
it's, god damn, that adds
Yeah.
so much to the platforming. And then halfway into the game, you get like time travel where it's like you can go between 8-bit and 16-bit, and it's like, oh, it doesn't add that much. It's just like visual stuff and music, and it's, you know, it's really cool because you're jumping back and forth in the same level and shit, and it's really interesting. But after that time travel thing, they turned the game into a Metroidvania, and all the areas that you went through that were just like level to level to level now are an interconnected map
It's
that
so
you have
fun
to
when they do stuff like
retrace,
that.
and it's fucking crazy, and
Yeah.
it's so good, and it's so hard. And I was raging during multiple boss fights and multiple sections where I'm like, holy fuck, this game is so difficult. It is so good. It's amazing. It was that one's great. um Fuck, what else? I played Baba Is You earlier this year, like a lot of it earlier this year. That game is amazing, but also melted my brain. Literally, I think I leaked gray matter out of my ears playing that game on stream. So
Why?
it's really tough. If you've never played Baba Is You,
Yeah, I've
you just
not.
have to play it because it will also melt your brain, and it will fall out of your ears.
Oh, hey, I got something. Here are. Oh no, I have to.
I'm checking my Hades stats right now, by the way.
All right.
How many is this? 3, what is it? 3, 10, 20. Okay, I have 26 clears.
26 clears. That's quite a
Yeah.
lot. Okay, I have showing on the screen right now.
26 clears, 66 runs.
66 runs, 26 clears. That's a pretty good percentage win rate. I have 0 and like 30 something runs, so you are doing much better than me on your stats. But
Slightly.
dude, when I play video games, man, it is just so kick back. I always have a TV show on or something, Netflix. Like, I am chilling. I am not worried about, playing this game hard or anything like that.
Yeah.
But no, what I'm showing on the screen right now is a chat that Henry gave to me. That's my brother. So these are his 9 or 10 indie games that he says are his favorites, are good as fuck.
I don't see a screen share, but you can tell me out loud.
Let's
You can
no.
tell everyone out loud and then tell me out loud.
Okay, let's do that, and then also share the screen.
Just say them out loud. No,
Okay.
that's fine. Fuck the screen share.
All right. His favorites are Hollow Knight.
Maybe my personal favorite indie game ever.
That's literally what he said. I don't get you guys, because we've already talked about this, but like I don't know why you guys.
Hollow Knight is up there. Hollow Knight, Celeste are like some of the ones that immediately come to my mind. As, like,
Celeste,
the
I get.
absolute best.
Obviously, we talked about it like every fucking episode, but but Metro, I'll try Hollow Knight again or something like that. All right, Hyper Light Drifter.
I have not played that one yet.
Okay, satisfying combat.
I do own it, and I've tried to play it.
Super atmospheric, ambiguous plot, kind of like older Zelda with faster paced combat. So
Hyper Light Drifter, I think, started as a Kickstarter game or some kind of crowdfunded game that I think went on too long before it was officially released because games like it came out before it.
Yeah.
But that doesn't make it bad. And I've heard that Hyper Light Drifter is quite good. So that's actually on my list. I have a small list on Steam of games that are separated to play on stream. And that's one of those, yeah. I've heard amazing things of Hyper Light Drifter.
He says Shovel Knight.
Yeah. Classic.
Okay.
Modern classic.
Katana Zero.
I have that game open on a window next to me to purchase right now. Because it's on sale on the Humble Store. Referral code in the description. Just kidding.
Fury.
I've played Fury, but I never finished it. That game's hard as fuck.
He says literally a straight up boss rush. Every enemy feels like the final boss.
Yeah, you just play one boss after another, but every boss is a crazy, super complicated, giant set piece, bullet hell, hack and slash thing. It's fucking lunacy. I think I did like 4 or 5 bosses before I stopped playing it. Not for any particular reason. I was just like, I'll play tomorrow, and then tomorrow became never. But that is a really good one. I don't think I would put it in my top 10. I mean, obviously I didn't finish it, but I can see why people would like it. It's really fucking good. Also, the music's insane.
The Messenger.
That's the one I just told you about.
Wait, is that? Oh, I thought we were talking about Fury.
That's the ninja one. The
Oh, my
messenger
bad.
that you just said is the ninja one I talked about earlier.
Okay,
That
all
turns
right.
into a Metroidvania there, or yeah,
Okay. Well, there you go.
it's great.
You and Henry agree.
It's a
Undertale.
great one. Still haven't played Undertale.
Okay. Inside/Limbo, because he says they're like the same game.
Limbo, I would give Limbo like a 7. Inside is like really good. It's really, really good.
Okay. And
Those games get criticized for not having gameplay, but I think that undermines what kind of games they are.
okay.
Yeah.
The Stanley Parable. That's good,
That's a
but it's
game.
old.
I mean, it's just, what can you say about it? It's super fucking unique and super interesting and super its own thing. I mean, it's great. It is great.
Yeah. So
Was that 10?
that was 10.
All right.
Yeah. So all right, you
I
have
can
some
definitely agree with
agreement
some of those.
with all those.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Hollow
you're not gonna
Knight.
you're not
I
gonna
love me some
disagree.
Hollow Knight.
You know
No.
the top indie
I
games.
right. My disagree is like, oh, I don't think it's one of my favorites. It's just really good. It's just amazing, but it's not in my top 10 of other games. I'm like Fury's like an 8.5. Don't insult me putting that in my top 10. Yeah, I don't know about that one.
Yeah. All right. Well, I've said all I'm gonna say about Hades.
Yeah, I think we covered Hades pretty
Yeah,
well.
I don't think it's bad for us to go on every episode and say we played this game. Here's what it's about. It's awesome. We loved it. Steven, do you love it? Yeah. Okay, great. And then sign off. I mean, I know
I
it's a
mean,
little bit.
depending on the game, there's, like I was saying earlier, there's a lot of like gimmicks or things about it that are worth discussion. The thing about Hades is like there's nothing really specific worth talking about. You're like, "Hey, the music's really good."
Music's
It's like
good.
what makes it good? It's like just listen to it. The art is really good. It's just
I love the
it looks
characters.
beautiful. Every character
Yeah.
is a thirst trap. Every single character is a thirst trap. You see Megara and you're like, "Oh my god, mommy." You see Nyx, you're like, "Mommy." You see Zeus, you're like, "Daddy." Everyone, dude, everyone's crazy. Zagreus is literally, he opened the fucking floodgates of every single person that opened that game, dude. He's just too attractive.
Yeah.
What can you say?
Yep.
It's just good. Gameplay, hey, gameplay is great. Replayability, oh, it's super replayable, dude. It's great. Story, oh, the story's really interesting. This is one thing I did mention in my review. That I actually really think it's interesting that the death and like respawning is canonical in the story. Which I think I mentioned to you before you bought the game. But like, again, Slay the Spire, whatever.
The game is
like
fully
dying
intended.
is outside of the game.
Yeah.
Right? That's like you're playing the game, so you have to die and restart. But dying and going back to the beginning is in the story.
Yes.
Like you live in the underworld, you live in Hades, so every time you die, the river Styx takes you to the front of the underworld, and characters
the reason you're
comment
mentioning
about
that
how you die.
Is because like I'm playing other roguelikes and like FTL, it doesn't happen. It's just restart the run.
Right.
Oh, you made a high
again.
score. Or Noita, Noita, which a game I just started. Like it's the same thing. You have progress where you could see which stuff and which kind of monsters you've killed, and that is your only save progress. But like this game is single player story focused, that like, yep, that's part of it's written in the game. Like once you lose this, and once you lose all your life, it's an express trip back to Hades' house. And like that's written in the game, and so in characters mention, "Oh, you're back again. How was it?" And
would you care if I mention a really tiny thing about when you beat Hades?
No, for me, no. And everybody listening,
So
spoiler, you've been warned.
It's a small spoiler. It's not that big a deal. It's just it's just one of those things that's funny to think about. So when you die against Hades, when you start back, right, you go back to the front of the palace or whatever. He's not at his desk because you were instantly teleported back, and he has to walk back.
Oh, okay.
And when you beat him, he is at his desk because he gets there before you. Because you kill him. And it's just a really funny thing that they thought about that. They're like, Yeah, if when you die you get sent to the beginning, then whichever one of you loses in the fight should get there before the other person.
Right.
I just thought that was really cute.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, it's a great game. It's a
Yeah.
fantastic game. Big recommend.
Yeah, I don't know if it's gonna ever make it in like a list of games that I think about forever and always, but it's not gonna. I'm not gonna forget about it. But
Right.
it had a good run for me.
That's what's interesting for me is I'm like I would probably put it easily like in the top couple games that I've played this year, just from pure enjoyment. I don't
Right.
know if like in my mind like I'm going to be as sentiment about Hades as I was about like Hollow Knight, which I was literally looking through like Etsy the other day to just try. I just want Hollow Knight merch, and it just doesn't exist. I just want it.
Yeah.
Or like Celeste or anything like that. Yeah, I don't know. But it's just great. It's just a fun game.
Yeah, I agree.
Anything else you want to say?
Nope.
Covered Oregon Trail about as well as we could.
Yeah. Yep. Second edition, third edition. Where would gaming be if it wasn't for the 5th edition of Oregon Trail?
Probably better.
Wouldn't have affected anything, right?
Yeah, just nothing would have changed.
Yep. Yeah.
Maybe no microtransactions.
Dude, next time we probably should consider starting these episodes until before midnight.
Yeah.
As opposed to after.
Maybe.
Would we go until like what, 1:30 in the morning or whatever time it is now?
I don't know.
Probably 2.
Later than that, yeah.
Oh shit.
It's fine.
We got goofy on this episode.
You wanna shout your channel out for my channel?
Yes. I do a YouTube channel for Michael Kuhlman. It's under my name.
What? Hold on. I don't want to be that guy, but you gotta say that again. What do you mean you do a YouTube channel for Michael Kuhlman? You
under
are
Michael Kuhlman. I know, under my name. Dude, I'm late.
What is this phrasing? I do a YouTube channel for Michael Kuhlman. The most frustrating thing is that you are right.
Well, what I was
So
really thinking of is I just recently had an episode that for me had lots of views, and it's like approaching 250 views in the first 2 days, and I'm realizing that
you're worried if people know it's your channel.
Well, yeah. The thing is, I didn't realize this until you pointed out to me 10 or 15 minutes before we started this episode that what I said on there is I had 3 topics. I had critical thinking, conspiracy theories, Tim Dillon, and those are 3 separate subjects. But what I wrote was on episode 1 of Thoughts and Goals, which is the podcast or the series.
You absolute madman, didn't use a line or a dash.
Yeah, and so it looks like Tim Dillon, this famous comedian who's on the come up with 500,000 views per episode, is on my shitty little podcast, and people are clicking on it. Oh, extra content. And so I don't know if I that's what I was thinking of, and I just said whatever nonsense. But
I mean, this really is the last temptation of Christ. How you figured out that clickbait works, and now you're like, well, fuck it. Do I ever have to tell the truth?
I think I'm gonna leave it for
Tim
now.
Dillon on all my podcasts all of a sudden.
Invite anytime.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go see him on Tuesday, and but anyway, that's he's coming down to Tampa.
Interesting.
That's the most exciting thing I have. I'm on Twitter. It's under my name. But YouTube's my favorite thing. So catch me there or don't catch me at all. Steven, what about you?
Yeah. I'm on twitch.tv/Stefan Galaxy playing video games usually 4 times a week. I'm on youtube.com/Stefan Galaxy uploading videos, reviews, gameplay, Twitch replays, bullshit. I'm on Twitter @StefanGalaxy93. It's a good time. We do a lot of shit posting. And recently, I'm on TikTok. I feel like a boomer. I don't know how TikTok works, but I'm putting.
You're like
stuff
just
up
in
there.
time. They're about to ban it, so.
Yeah, well, it's a win-win because either they ban it and then I never have to watch a fucking TikTok ever again in my entire life, or they don't ban it and then I get to have stupid videos up on TikTok. But yeah, that's what I got. I do stuff on the internet, don't we all?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Okay. Good night, everybody.
Bye forever.
Goodbye forever.